The real estate world is buzzing right now, and it's all because of two huge leadership changes. Now, on the surface, they might not seem connected, but if you dig just a little bit deeper, you start to see this fascinating new trend taking shape. And honestly, it could end up reshaping the entire industry.
So, that brings us to the big question. What could possibly connect an established industry giant with one of its fastest-growing competitors? Well, the answer is all about who they just picked to lead them into the future. And here's that common thread. Both of these companies, Compass and Fathom Realty, have just appointed new women as presidents to run their operations. This is a pretty big deal, so let's take a closer look at who these new leaders are and what this might all mean.
All right, first up, let's talk about Compass, the industry titan. They didn't go on some big, splashy external search for their new leader. Nope. Instead, they promoted from within their own ranks. And this is Nita Nawab, the newly appointed president of Compass. Now, you might not know her name as well as the company's CEO, but trust me, she has been an absolute key player behind the scenes for years. And just look at this timeline. Her rise within the company has been nothing short of impressive. She came on board back in 2018 as chief of staff to the CEO, and by 2022, she was already the brokerage president, handling some huge acquisitions. Her promotion to the very top spot now just shows how deeply she understands the company's DNA.
And the industry is really starting to take notice. Nawab just jumped 10 spots on the Swanee Poll Power 200, which is basically the who's who of real estate leadership. Going from 70th to 60th in just 1 year, that's a huge sign of her growing influence.
And this quote from her CEO pretty much says it all. Even with this massive promotion, her core mission hasn't changed a bit. It's all about empowering the company's agents. It's about strengthening the business from the inside out.
Okay, now let's pivot to our second company, Fathom Realty. We're going to see how this same theme of internal focus plays out, but in a totally different way. We're going from an internal promotion at an industry giant to a really strategic hire at a fast-growing competitor.
Fathom has brought in Lori Muller to be its new president. She is a very well-known and respected leader in the industry, and she officially took the helm at Fathom on February 9th. And her resume is, wow, seriously impressive. She was just the president of U.S. operations for Exit Realty. Her new CEO calls her a proven, people-first leader with a strong history of, you guessed it, empowering agents. You're starting to see the theme here, right? It's all about that operational strength and agent support.
And just to give you a sense of Fathom's size, they ranked 18th in the entire country by sales volume last year. So yeah, they're a serious, fast-growing player, and this hire just screams that they're ready to get to that next level.
So let's just step back a second. We've got two different leaders at two different companies taking two very different paths to get to the top. But, and this is the important part, despite all these differences, there's a powerful shared philosophy at play here. And that's where this whole story gets really fascinating.
Because underneath these two paths, a shared idea about what leadership really means is bubbling up to the surface. It's about moving from being the backbone of the business to finally getting that well-deserved seat in the boardroom.
This quote from Lori Muller just hits the nail on the head. For years and years, women have been absolutely fundamental to the industry's success, but that massive contribution wasn't always reflected in the top leadership titles.
But then Muller takes it a step further. She draws this really clear line in the sand between visibility and impact. For her, having a fancy title and being in the spotlight, well, that's all pretty meaningless without real, tangible results that empower other people and actually move the business forward.
For her, true leadership is about what you do, not just who you are. First, it's about actively mentoring other women, creating those pathways for them to succeed. Then it's about building a culture that's genuinely inclusive, where different voices are actually heard and valued. And finally, it's about having the guts to push for real, meaningful change, even when it's uncomfortable. This is leadership as an action, not just a position.
So, this brings us to the big question. Do these appointments signal a wider shift in what the industry really values in its leaders? Are we seeing a move away from prioritizing public visibility and toward valuing true internal impact?
And really, this is the key takeaway. You have two very different companies that, on their own, decided that their future doesn't lie with a high-profile media personality, but with leaders who have a deep, fundamental understanding of the business and a relentless focus on making their agents successful. Maybe in a market that's more competitive than ever, the new gold standard is steady, internal strength instead of all that external flash.
Which leaves us with one last thing to think about.
With leaders like Nita Nawab and Lori Muller in these powerful roles, are we watching a fundamental pivot happen in real time? A moment where the real estate industry redefines success, measuring its leaders not by the noise they make, but by the solid foundation they build from within? The answer to that is going to shape this industry for years to come.